Another big strike has now begun. Kellogg's workers at 4 large manufacturing plants have gone on strike. That means that work at all of their US cereal plants have come to a halt. 1,400 workers included in this. And this involves plants in Omaha, Nebraska, Battle Creek, Michigan, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Memphis, Tennessee. And the dispute, as is very often the case in work stoppages like this, especially recently, involves an assortment of pay and benefit issues such as the loss of premium healthcare, holiday and vacation pay, and reduced retirement benefits. And we cannot forget, of course, that this is coming as we're still in this pandemic. It has been very difficult for workers during this time. They've been expected in a lot of different industries to take on even more of a burden to make sure that the corporations continue to function. That is, I apologize, according to union leaders, what is happening here. They say that the company is going to continue to send jobs to Mexico if workers don't accept proposals that take away some of the remaining labor protections that they currently have. With the plants continuing to operate throughout the pandemic, meaning that many workers had to put in 12-hour shifts 7 days a week. It's like when we were talking about people working at the meat processing plants, expected to just work and work and work. It was also the case with Frito-Lay workers. The company says that its offer is fair and would increase wages and benefits for employees that it said made an average of $120,000 a year last year. That's what they're saying. I don't know what jobs they're focusing on there or if executive pay is bringing that up, because when you bring up the actual staff wages, it doesn't seem like what a lot of people working in these plants are actually making, but that's what they say. And the union leader says that they expect that scabs will be brought in to continue operating the plants during the strike while negotiations continue. JR, what are your thoughts?
This is another one of those things where it's the domino effect of something, right? We'll complain about how people aren't going back to work because of COVID and all that stuff, or how they're being lazy and how they're entitled and all this. And we'll throw all these reasons why people are such pieces of garbage in the workforce. But things like not paying attention to the COVID infection rate and not promoting masking and not promoting vaccination and not telling people to take things seriously, because there's so many different entities when it comes to just conservative media that wants to tell people certain things so they can get money coming in and build an audience. Or then when it comes to politicians that want to look a certain way, like the negative effect on trying to get yourself and advance yourself, and then hurting people in the process. There's a shortage of workers at this place because of COVID infections. It's obvious. It happens in a lot of places. Now, if they do that, then you have to lean on your other workers that work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week, and then they lose their benefits based off it. And if they go on strike, they're the bad guys. So the cause that happened for all this to happen, at least in this aspect, for this to happen, doesn't get discussed. But the result of it is what gets discussed. And the result of these humans that are trying to survive these are the bad guys for them being put in the position that our society put them in, and that our leaders and our legislators and the way that we approach a pandemic like this put them in. They're the bad guys though. This is how we operate here. And then if you're not the one that's willing to work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week, you're a lazy, entitled American that isn't willing to work. Come on, man. It's devastating how it looks. And then people never point that out, except for the people sitting there dealing with it.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you started off saying that we've been noticing that this is becoming more common, and that is true. I just wanted to remind people of some of the strikes, some of which we've already talked about, including mine workers against Warrior Met Coal in Alabama. We've covered that a few times. Nurses in Massachusetts, building engineers in San Francisco, carpenters in Washington. Other strikes aren't currently happening, but have been authorized and might begin at any time, including at John Deere, Harvard and Columbia University, public works employees in Minneapolis, group home workers in Connecticut, dining workers in Northwest University, and of course, yesterday we talked about IATSE as well. I don't know if this is in raw numbers more than at any given point, but it does seem like it's becoming more common, and one can understand why. These workers were already largely being abused and lost out on the pay wasn't keeping pace with cost of living and things like that. This is before the pandemic, which increased the load of hours and generally resulted in less pay going to them. And when you see companies getting through the pandemic and doing quite well, executive pay going up after you did 12-hour shifts 7 days a week for months, Yeah, you're gonna be kind of frustrated about that. And so we're seeing a lot more of this. We should see a lot more of this. I will only say one other thing I wanna say is occasionally we'll cover some like story about Fox Business or CNBC or something like that on the main show. And I will always point out, it seems weird to me because I'm a dumb, naive idiot, that we have all these business channels, but they're only ever about the CEOs and the stock price.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't a business channel doing coverage on the ground of strikes on behalf of the workers? That's business. That's how business is run, is with the workers. If the workers are being abused and that stops business, how is that not a thing they'd talk about? Because of course, that's not what business channels are, not about business. They're about stock prices and CEOs doing well. But we should have that. Business channels should be as labor as they are CEO, if not more, but they're not.
Isn't that weird? That's weird that's the radical point of view, to focus on the workers, because the workers aren't really, at least in this mindset, the workers aren't a part of the business running. They're just there to facilitate the people at the top that own the businesses or that are running the business. That's the way it's supposed to be. These workers don't have a place. And that's just capitalism. Like in a hierarchical society that we have. Hey, I'm at the top, you're at the bottom. You're supposed to be garbage and dirt and do everything I tell you for nothing. And if you don't like it, you're entitled. It's crazy.
100%. Yeah. Someone saying in the chat, are you pitching a TYT business show? I told Anna she should start TYT business show, but no, not at this point anyway. We got a lot of new content recently. We want to focus on building that out.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.